What are objective cycles and how to manage and use them within Appraise? I've already navigated to the OKRs screen from the left-hand navigation of Appraise and opened up the cycles tab. Let us first understand what objective cycles are. In essence, objective cycles are timeframes for executing your OKRs. When you try to create an objective, it always has to be associated with one or the other cycle that you have in the system, right? So fundamentally, these objective cycles are nothing but timeframes. When you install the Appraise app on your Jira instance, automatically it created 4 quarterly cycles for you, because that's the usual recommendation for OKR execution cadence. However, you are free to modify the duration of those cycles, start date and end dates of those cycles, and a couple of other things. So let's start by creating a new objective cycle. You have this button available that says add objective cycle. When you click on it, you'll be able to see a form. Herein, let's say I want to create an objective cycle for April to June 2023. I'm going to assign it the start date of 1st of April and end date of 30th of June. I can add description. It's an optional parameter, but I can add it for the sake of ease of use. Then there is an additional configuration that exists against each objective cycle, which is what type of grading should be applicable to all the OKRs that are associated with this cycle. There are 3 options. One is opinion scale, second is radio buttons, and then the third one is none. When you have set it to none, that means no grading is required for the objectives that are associated with this cycle. If you set it to radio buttons, you will have to grade the objectives towards the end of their life cycle with any of these 3 options. You can add few more options, you can customize them, and the first default choice was opinion scale, wherein you are supposed to grade your performance on that objective from 0 to 10, right? So this is how you add an objective cycle. Similarly, if I were to click on any of these existing cycles that are there on the screen, I will see an option to edit. When I click on edit, I'll be displayed the same pop-up, the same form. However, some of the parameters now cannot be edited. For example, this one already has a start date from the past, so I'm not allowed to modify it because the objective cycle has already begun. However, I can modify the end date, extend the end date. I cannot change the grading type because one or more objectives from this cycle have already been graded. The other action that's available on any of these cycles is delete. Now, let's be very cautious about this delete action, because as soon as you click on delete, you will be brought to a confirmation dialog that clearly tells you this will delete all the associated OKRs. This action cannot be reversed. Do you want to continue? So be extremely cautious about this action, because once you delete the cycle, all the corresponding objectives will be removed from the Appraise screens, from the Appraise database. So don't ever use it unless absolutely needed. We'll talk about a few different statuses that are available for these objective cycles, and probably you could use one of them instead of deleting the entire objective cycle. Before I turn and talk about these other available actions, let's do understand that the actions that I'm taking here are not available to each one of your users within the Appraise company directory. The permission that dictates visibility of the cycles tab as well as these actions is available under the company directory rules and permissions, objectives and key results, called OKR settings and administration. Any user whose role has the permission set to yes, only that user will be able to look into the cycles tab, take additional actions, and add new cycles as well. Right? Now let's go back and understand what other options are available. You'll notice there is a close option on this one. There is a close option on this one as well. But if I click on the archived one, there is restore action. Right? So let's first understand what are the different types of statuses applicable to objective cycles. I've just opened out the filters so that all the statuses are visible. Let's understand these one by one. Let us first look at the scheduled status for an objective cycle. As the name suggests, an objective cycle will be in the status scheduled when its start date is in the future. So let's say if I were to create an objective cycle today, but set its start date as 1st of April, and then obviously the end date is ahead of 1st of April, the objective cycle will be created in the status scheduled. As soon as the objective cycle start date is reached, that is in the earlier example, on 1st of April, the cycle status would be automatically changed to active. Right up until the end date of that objective cycle, it will remain in the status active. And as soon as the end date is exceeded, meaning if the objective cycle start date was 1st of April, end date was 30th of June, then up until 30th of June, the status of the cycle will remain active. But on 1st of July, it will automatically change to either ready for grading or ready to close. Now, ready for grading and ready to close are sibling statuses, meaning they remain at the same level. Depending on what your grading configurations were at the time of objective cycle creation, it will determine whether grading is available or not. If the grading is available, then the cycle status will be ready for grading. If the grading configuration was set to none, then it will have the status of ready to close. From ready for grading and ready to close, you will have to manually close the objective cycle from this actions tab, this actions menu, right? And then once the objective cycle is closed, you also have the option to archive it. What archival does, once you have archived an objective cycle, all its corresponding OKRs are also archived and they do not appear anywhere within Appraise, except for a few places, for example, wherein there are alignments, hierarchy view. Except for these places, you won't be able to see these archived OKRs in the browse OKRs view, in the summary, in the reporting, or anywhere else. So if you do not, let's say if you have data that's old enough that need not be looked at once again unless necessary, you can archive a closed objective cycle and sort of stow away all of the corresponding OKRs in a corner of the application. If you want, you can always come back and restore that so that it goes back to the closed status. With regards to the closed and archived status, do keep in mind that once an objective cycle is closed, there will not be any modifications allowed to corresponding OKRs, right? So these are the different statuses associated with objective cycles. Probably one or two actions that I missed to talk about is this clone action. So when I click on clone, it will present me a pop-up. Now, do understand this is not cloning of the objective cycles. This is rather cloning of OKRs from an existing cycle into the current cycle, right? So what you're saying is clone OKRs from an existing cycle into this current cycle that I have used to trigger this action. So let's say you have a cycle called October 2022 to December 2022, and you want to clone all of the OKRs from that cycle into the current cycle. So what you will do is you will choose that objective cycle, earlier objective cycle, and then once you start this action, all of the OKRs from the previous cycle that you have chosen along with the option selected will start the cloning process. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.